Hi, everybody. How are you doing today? I hope everybody is doing well. And today we're going to talk about police officers who commit crimes and what happens afterwards. Is there any accountability? And how much accountability? Are they treated like regular people, as they should be? Or do they get away with it because of who they are? And why is that allowed? And when is it going to be stopped? There are so many questions that need to be answered, and I believe so many changes that need to be made. And here we're going to show them and discuss them. The first case I want to go over just recently happened. Valerie Cantinelli, a New York police officer, hires a hitman to kill her ex-husband and now boyfriend's 13-year-old daughter. See what happens next with corruption within our system.
Valerie Cincinnati was a New York City cop decorated for catching criminals in the 106th precinct. But now she's a convicted felon herself after plotting to kill her estranged husband, Isaiah Carvalho, and her boyfriend's teenage daughter. Her boyfriend, John DeRuba, agreeing to help the feds and make troubling recordings of the plot played in court today.
Now, this wasn't just one hit. This was 2 hits put out, not only on her ex-husband, but also on a 13-year-old girl, a child. Remember this, a child. She should have got first or second degree murder. Now let's see what she really got due to our corrupt system.
Former New York cop for obstructing justice. It's part of a plea deal because Valerie Cincinnati was charged with trying to hire a hitman to kill her estranged husband and the 13-year-old daughter of her boyfriend. And because she's already served time, she could get out soon. Here's Eyewitness News reporter Stacey Sager.
Valerie Cincinnati was a New York City cop decorated for catching criminals in the 106th precinct. But now she's a convicted felon herself after plotting to kill her estranged husband, Isaiah Carvalho, and her boyfriend's teenage daughter. Her boyfriend, John DeRuba, agreeing to help the feds and make troubling recordings of the plot played in court today.
They can subpoena these photos.
But Cincinnati, tearful and apologetic, telling the judge, quote, "I was angry, I was horrible, but I can promise you I never intended for that to happen."
Really? Are you kidding me? If she didn't intend for it to happen, then why did it go all the way through to the fake murders, the pictures, and the confirmation if she didn't intend to go through with it? Or for it to really happen? That is absolutely what her lawyers told her to say, and they put out there on the news to get some kind of feelings or remorse or, okay, we're good with the BS ending of this. No, it's not going to work. This absolutely is not justice being served.
We're very pleased with the result here. The murder for hire charges were dismissed.
Of course, the criminal and the defense attorney are pleased with it, but we, the people that have any sense in our head, are not. Now, here's a really ridiculous situation and so contradictory, is that people who are okay with this, they'll get mad, let's say like a crime of a drug addict. They're only hurting themselves, and they get a little less time. It's an issue. They get mad. But yet a cop who commits murder or attempts to commit murder, that's not the same? It's okay? No, it's not. It's a hell of a lot worse. And even police brutality, that's okay. Because what? They're a criminal? Even though the crime is maybe just hurting themselves, it's not one that hurts anybody else. But again, a police officer can beat you to you're almost not alive or you're not alive anymore, and that's okay. These double standards, or giving somebody a ridiculous amount of time that's just a normal person, and giving police officers or anybody in the government or wealth or elite group get either nothing at all, not even acknowledged, or they get a slap on the wrist. That all has to stop. It's supposed to be equal. You get punishment by the charge, not by who you are or who you're connected to or what you do. This has got to stop, and it has to stop now. Enough is enough. Too many real criminals, bad criminals, get away with way too much just because, again, who they are, who they know, what they do. That is absolutely ridiculous. And you wonder why these things happen, because their heads get blown up by either the Thin Blue Line gang or, oh, we know we're not going to get any accountability for this. We're not going to be held responsible. And you keep blowing up their ego with this power that they really don't and shouldn't have. And you make it acceptable, and you wonder why this stuff happens. And again, it's got to be stopped.
In a plea agreement, Cincinnati only admitted to obstruction of justice. So, trying to strike a balance between that and the disturbing details of this case, the judge sentenced her today to 48 months in prison.
Again, what she admitted to and the evidence are two totally different things, as in every case. And the evidence was all there. Even what you watch, let's say, on these true crime channels like ID, everything that those people got charged for was in this case. And they got life sentences. And that was only like one person, their husband, not a 13-year-old girl, on top of the ex-husband. So again, why is she allowed to get a slap on the wrist for 2 hits being put out on one adult and one child? That should have been a life sentence, as every other person gets. But because she's a New York police officer, she's protected. That's BS. And people need to start, again, uniting and rallying against this and not allowing this to happen ever. If you commit a crime like this, no matter who you are, you need to be charged and handed the appropriate sentence, as anyone else would. Enough is enough, and this must come to an end. New York Penal Code 12527, murder in the first degree, is a Class A felony, meaning that if you are convicted, you could be sentenced to life in prison under New York Penal Law 125.27. You could be prosecuted for murder in the first degree if you caused the death of another person under the conditions that showed that you had a depraved indifference for human life. Murder for hire. In New York, attempted murder occurs when a person comes dangerously close to accomplishing the death of another. However, attempted murder does not actually require death to result. In fact, not even injury. That is because attempted murder is what is known as an inchoate crime, which is essentially the criminalization of taking steps towards or in furtherance of committing a crime. And then we have murder in the second degree, New York Penal Code 125.25. A person is guilty of murder in the second degree when, 1, with intent to cause the death of another person, he causes the death of such person or of a third person. There were all the New York laws she could have and should have been held responsible for violating in this situation. And yet they were not handed down and justice was not served. And her punishment definitely does not fit her crimes with her victims. And what if she would have succeeded? These families would have lost their loved ones. And again, it went all the way to the point of taking the fake death pictures and showing her that it was completed. That was definitely proof of intent to finish the job. and that she definitely wanted the job finished. So if the boyfriend wasn't collecting evidence and she really did find a hitman, these two people would definitely be dead. And she's walking with a slap on the wrist. Make it make sense. They're trying to use the fact that she was a police officer, and that has no bearings on what she decided to do the day she decided to commit murder and become a murderer, as it doesn't for anybody else. She should have got first-degree murder. We probably could have even dealt with second-degree murder. But again, it should have still been first-degree murder. But the slap on the wrist? No. Not for 2 hits on 2 people and one being a minor child. This is unacceptable and needs to be corrected in our system now. This is unbelievable and ridiculous and disgusting and definitely gross negligence of our justice system.
With time served, home confinement, and good behavior, it means she could get out in just 6 months. For Carvalho, who told the judge today his estranged wife was cruel and selfish, uncertainty about what the future holds.
Do you ever get over something like this? Ever? Anything at all to say about her?
The case, an emotional roller coaster, which included pictures of Carvalho faking his own murder so Cincinnati would believe her alleged plot was complete. A plot they say she was determined to carry out.
Absolutely, it was already in play. It would have been. It was staged. That he was dead and she got the pictures back, great, now we can move on. I mean, it's sick.
But the defense still maintaining Cincinnati was set up by the men in her life, that an officer with a perfect record became unhinged.
She lived a stellar life. Bruh. Up until the time she met John DeRuba.
And he says her family is ready to have her home.
First of all, that's an insult, especially to the people that had hits put out on them that may have never made it home, and their families, that her family will be happy to have her home. Who cares? She was willing to take 2 people off this earth and away from their families. So who cares what they feel? And second of all, at least now the criminals know what to use and what to say. And it better work for them as it did for this police officer. It's someone else's fault. They made me do it. Wouldn't it be amazing if that just worked for everybody who ever got caught doing what they weren't supposed to do, as it did for this police officer? Again, please make it make sense. This has to stop. And here's another story of a South Carolina police officer fired, charged after body cam video shows him stomping on a black man's head. And I really don't want to get into race about this because this happens to all people and nationalities, and it's happening way too much. It has to be stopped. And here's the other sadder part of this. It says the police officer is facing criminal charges after he stomped on a physically disabled black man's head. The good thing is he was fired. The bad and sad thing is most likely another department will pick him up. And that, again, needs to be fixed as well. This police brutality has got to come to an end. And the ones that don't report it, the ones that are caught doing so, not only need to be fired, they need to be charged. And they need to serve time. That's the way it should be. You are committing crimes. You should not be able to get away with it. And being fired is not punishment enough. They need to be charged, and they need to do time, and they should not be able to ever be a police officer again. And here it says a South Carolina police officer is unemployed and facing criminal charges after he stomped on the head of a physically disabled black man last week. David Lance Duke, 38, of Orangeburg, is charged with first-degree assault and battery. According to the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, he was booked Saturday into the Orangeburg County Detention Center and later released on $10,000 bond. So again, the charges are there. I hope they stick. I hope there's a decent amount of time handed out to this officer, and that's what we want to see, more accountability for these corrupt officers. This is exactly what I was talking about a minute ago. Former Orangeburg DPS officer charged for use of force incident was previously fired from the Calhoun County Sheriff's Office. And this is what I say. When they get fired from one, they go to another one, automatically get picked back up, and are back to work out on the streets to harm more people. This must come to an end. And here is proof out there over and over again. Just look it up and see how many cases come up. I only picked the 3 most recent and important ones that I found, but there are pages and pages and pages of the same incidences happening to different people by different officers. One is too many, and I can find probably millions of incidences. Now I'm going to show 2 more videos for the proof of just how awful and horrific this brutality has gotten and is. And if you cannot stand to watch things like this, this is a warning to click out now. But I really think everybody needs to watch, because you need to feel the hurt and anger when you watch this stuff happen to another human being for no reason. And it should never happen.
Shocking new video showing the moment an Indianapolis police officer appears to kick a black man in the face while he's on the ground in handcuffs.
I'm not going to do this, right?
This man is contained, handcuffed, and on the ground. And this tyrant come and stomps on his forehead and face. What the? All these officers need to be charged and do some time and never be able to be police officers again. And you're going to see it gets even worse, and the behavior of the officers is even worse. And then the covering by not mentioning what had happened to this man, which is why I said all were involved and all need to be fired. And then the cover up. If you cover up these kinds of actions, you need to be fired as well.
The body cam video, which was edited and released by police, shows Jermaine Vaughn on his back with his hands cuffed behind him and an officer on top of him. Then, police say Sergeant Eric Huxley's shoe enters the frame and kicks Vaughn in the face.
You're done. You're done.
A visibly stunned Vaughn remains on the ground, bleeding from his lip.
Roll over. I can't.
I'm upset. It hurts me to see any of our officers treat someone the way that you're going to see here shortly.
Sergeant Huxley, a 14-year veteran of the force, is now charged with 2 felonies for official misconduct and battery resulting in bodily injury.
As he should be, and the others should be charged as accessories and covering it up, and all fired, never to be police officers again anywhere.
According to court documents. Now, the U.S. Attorney General and FBI launching their own investigation, promising appropriate action if they find prosecutable offenses. Huxley's attorney denies his client acted illegally or with any criminal intent and says that he has had an exemplary career. Adding in a statement to NBC News, he is very sorry about any pain caused to Mr. Vaughn as a result of his actions and the negative scrutiny upon his department and fellow officers. This incident resulted from his perception of the need to attempt a trained police technique that unfortunately struck Mr. Vaughn in an unintended area of his body.
These police can really come up with some bullshit, can't they? it was a training technique that I misdid, and I kicked the guy right in the forehead and across his face with the bottom of my shoe. What was the technique? Where were you supposed to kick him? You shouldn't be kicking him at all. And there is no training technique. Give me a break. Why don't you tell us what that technique is? I would love to hear that BS story. But again, no matter what, we know it's BS. And the fact that they think that we, the people, are so stupid to believe the BS that they feed us is ridiculous. And anybody who says this cop is right is a moron. I'm sorry. I'm done. I'm pissed.
Police say Huxley has been suspended without pay.
My hope is that the community understands that when these things come to our attention, we'll deal with them quickly, get those people off the force.
The Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department released the footage amid an ongoing investigation into the incident that occurred late last month while police were responding to a disorderly conduct call.
To the credit of this chief, they were forthcoming, and they did not need to be put in a hammerlock to do that.
Police say the other two officers involved, Sergeant Christopher Kibbe and Officer Matthew Shores, have both been placed on administrative leave, pending an investigation.
And here's the last one, and this is the worst one as far as the damage they did to this poor man. And he begs for them to stop. And of course, they use the "stop resisting" so they could keep the beating going. This needs to be stopped. They also used "don't grab my gun or I'll shoot you" as they're pointing and shoving this gun into his head and God knows where else as it blurs. And as he said himself, he just felt like he was fighting for his life, which I honestly believe he was. And people, a normal reaction to people is to fight back when you feel like your life is in jeopardy. And that is the feeling you would get if you were going through this. And that's where the courts also have to understand, and the people who want to back them, is people will defend themselves when they feel like they are in danger. And you should never be put in that kind of position with a police officer where you feel in danger or intimidated to the point that you are seriously going to be hurt. That is where they are wrong in what they are doing. Those kind of actions from these officers that do this should never, ever be acceptable, ever. And again, that is a huge problem in policing today, and it has to be stopped. One thing I have to say before it plays, please watch, even though it is a little aggravating, because whoever did this camera footage and the body cam footage, it is horrific as far as this scratching sound. But please watch because it's important. It's very important to see this brutality.
I just kind of want to know what we're going to be going through is we're going to give you just a little bit of background of what happened before the video starts, and then I will show the video, and then I will make some comments and then take questions after that. Or I'll actually turn it over to Mr. Twombly, and then we'll take questions. I have to tell the public, every use of force is not always captured on body-worn camera. I think that's the intent of the legislation that was just passed, is that the public has a right to know. And I, as the chief of police, and my command staff has a right to know what is happening out on the streets. Sometimes it captures amazing acts, and unfortunately today, it captured a very despicable act. What you're going to see is going to anger you. It may even bring you to tears. I know as I watched it, I felt myself welling up with tears as well as anger.
Stop fighting! Excuse me, please. Stop fighting! Stop moving! Don't hurt me! Don't hurt me! Stop fighting now! Don't hurt me, bro! Don't shoot me! Please. Grab my gun again, I will shoot you! Don't shoot me, bro! Ow, help! Help! Don't shoot me, dude! Just let me go! No, I don't! Don't hurt me! Help! I didn't shoot the thing! I didn't shoot the thing! Okay.
Don't move.
Okay.
Don't move. Put your hands out. Hands out. You're going to get him again.
I got it.
Hands out.
I got his right one.
Okay.
All right.
Good. Okay. All right. All right. Well, help. Other hand. There you go. No officers are hurt. No. She's got blood on her arm.
I can't.
Stay on your side. Just
I need water. I need water. I need water. I didn't do anything, dude. I was just fighting for my life, man. Hey, Randy, you guys beat me up.
Yeah. Are you okay?
I'm good.
Just stay there. Get her out. Just stay there, all right?
Dude, I need some water, bro.
All right, we'll get you.
Look.
Now that's difficult for the community, Mr. Vincent's family and friends to watch that. I want to apologize from the bottom of my heart, every officer in the Aurora Police Department. Those that have seen it, the officers are seeing this right now as well. Some have seen it due to preparing for this press conference, and I can tell you we're disgusted, we're angry. This is not police work. This is not police work. We don't train this. It's not acceptable.